Bella. Bella. Oh, there you go, good girl. So we got Bella here, and we have Big Mac coming over. Big Mac. Big Mac. Come here, buddy. Big Mac. Oh, it went between the teeth. Big Mac. Oh, he almost landed in my lap going forward for that. All right. I got a few more. We're gonna save them. Because we're trying to do a talk, a little truck talk about alligators, well, crocodilians as pets, and why they should not ever be considered as pets. And I really like to emphasize, a lot of differences here, but also first and foremost, I'm not saying these are the rules for thee and not for me. I don't count these things as pets whatsoever. I run an animal sanctuary on 40 acres with over 200 animals, and I've been working with crocodilians for over 20 years, both in tourism, but also in the research sector as well. So I have multiple academic publications in invasive species biology, capturing invasive caiman, capturing native alligators and crocodiles in Florida, contributing to long-term monitoring programs. So I've been doing the research side, tourism side, captive husbandry side for 20 years. And I can tell you, these things are not pets, okay? So if we try to kind of break this down, I know a lot of people see my videos and they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. Look at this guy hanging out with alligators. I want to do that. I want one as a pet. And that is the opposite of what I want anybody to think after they see my videos. So why is it bad to have crocodilians as pets? So first off, as you can imagine, they're dangerous, okay? They can and will kill and eat you if you don't know what you're doing. Even these guys right here, even though I'm sitting in the water with them, oh wow, they seem so calm, they're so nice, right? Because I do know how to handle them and what to watch out for and to not put myself in a compromising situation. But if I didn't know those things and I did mess up, I mean, you can see right here, they are more than happy to eat me if I wasn't paying attention and did not know what I was doing. Now, I want to say, sadly, most pet crocodilians never get big enough to eat their owner. So that's one of the big ones right there. So most of the time, they never actually get big enough to pose a real threat to their owners, no matter how old they get. Because when they're kept in captivity as, again, I keep on doing the air quotes as pets, because again, they're not pets, and I don't want them to be considered as pets. So I don't even want to call them pets. But yeah, so what usually happens is people get them as a baby, and in the United States, we're going to focus mainly on the US here just because that's where I am, and that's most of my knowledge as far as legalities and whatnot go. But other countries as well, people do try to keep them, but it is definitely more prevalent in the US, and in some states, it is legal to just buy one without a permit, without any knowledge, anything necessary. So in certain states like in Texas, you don't need a permit to go buy a baby crocodile. Now you cannot get an alligator though. Texas is it's a weird one where like native species are protected, but non-native are not protected. So you can actually go and buy a baby croc, no real permit. I think you have to get a permit from Walmart that you just pay and you get it. It's like, I don't count that as a permit. In Florida, you need a permit as in you need 1,000 hours of documented experience. You need a minimum of 2.5 acres of land for alligators, a minimum of 5 acres of land for crocodiles. There are very much more strict requirements, but Texas, kind of free for all. Wisconsin, we just recently learned is a big one where you don't need anything. Alligator, crocodile, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can just get one, no permit, nothing required. Pennsylvania is another one right there. Isn't Michigan one?
I think so, and that's why there's that alligator sanctuary.
Yeah, so there's that as well. So the point being that in several states, you don't need any permit required to get an animal that theoretically can reach 10 feet and eat you, or if it got out, your neighbor, which I think is just insanity. Like, just from a public safety standpoint, it's insane. Like, that should be a federal ban on crocodilians as pets. Now, I am not against the ownership of these animals by responsible individuals who have an interest in education or conservation. So I'm not saying that they should not be able to be owned, but if you are to own one, you should really have to be able to prove why do you have this animal and what are your qualifications that would justify you being able to have an animal that can reach 10 feet and eat somebody.
Or even just a habitat that's going to be suitable for that animal when it's full grown, because most people just literally keep them in fish tanks or a bedroom. And
She's leaving. She's like, I've had enough of you. No, she's actually leaving because we gave Dino over there some ribs, and she can hear and smell him chewing on that, and she keeps on going over there to stare off like, I want the ribs. Okay. But yeah, so I'm going to get to the animal part. I was focusing more first on that public safety part because I think that resonates with the uneducated much more heavily. And I don't mean the uneducated like in a derogatory way. I just mean people who are not familiar or don't care, don't have empathy towards these animals, which is the majority of the population in the US. Most of them have no empathy towards a crocodilian. They see them as monsters, right? So you're not going to really win those people over in the empathy argument about proper treatment of these animals. So, but you will on the public safety part, which again is just insanity that you don't need a permit to get an animal that could eat you or your neighbor. Like, and you don't have to tell your neighbors either. You know, you could have a 10-foot alligator in your basement in Wisconsin. Your neighbor has no idea, nor do you have any responsibility to let them know. And by the way, I'm going to focus towards you and him. I'm not watching her, so let me know. She's leaving? Okay.
Yeah, she's
so
going
she
to go
comes
try
back,
to
you gotta let
steal
me know.
Dino's ribs.
So yeah, that's a big one right there. But I think now the public safety thing, again, I think that resonates more with the people who lack empathy towards these animals. But realistically, they're not like trying to crawl over your fence and eat your neighbor. You know, like it's public safety. The risk is really not as great as you might think, especially if you're not familiar with these animals. They're not mindless killing machines. They're going to go on a rampage through downtown and kill everybody. But what I do want to focus more on is that empathy part, because that's the part that will resonate more with the people who would want to have one of these animals and they're like, oh, I think they're cool, I want one. Well, if you think they're cool and you have any respect towards these animals at all, here is why it's a bad idea for you to have one unless you are, again, properly qualified. So they suffer in captivity heavily from MBD, metabolic bone disease. And MBD, it kind of is like a blanket term for a lot of different ailments. So when we talk about reptiles, we do often say MBD, and that can mean like a bunch of different things. It's kind of like if you were saying to a person, oh, they're sick. They're sick with what? Oh, they're sick. You know, so it really is kind of this blanket thing we use in reptiles. And obviously you can get a lot more specific in it, but we're just going to go with that kind of blanket because it kind of encompasses a lot of it, you know, very well. So what are some of the things that happen? Well, first and foremost, most captive alligators never reach his size if they're kept as a pet. Most of them that are kept inside somebody's house in a fish tank, they usually don't get over 6 feet. Okay, now an alligator can get, now we don't know how old he is, okay? And alligator's growth depends on diet and environmental factors, both in captivity and in the wild. So he's a wild-caught nuisance alligator. We have had him for less than a year. So we actually have no idea how old he actually is because there's no way to tell by simply looking at him, right? Big Mac, I'm gonna give him another one. Big Mac, you want this? Oh, good boy. There you go. So we don't know how old he is, but we do know from mark recapture studies that an alligator can reach his size in about 20 years sometimes. Now, of course, it could take a lot longer or it could take less time, again, depending on diet and environmental factors, that kind of thing. But I'm just gonna say 20 years as a baseline. So let's say we have a 20-year-old alligator, 10 foot in the wild. 20-year-old alligator kept in somebody's basement in Wisconsin, usually 4 feet. Wrap your head around that for a second. 4 foot versus 10 foot. Okay, can you imagine if you were hanging out with your friends? Let's just make, you know, if we put this in people terms, let's say you're hanging out with your buddy, and you know, I'm a 6'5" male, and then my friend of the exact same age is 3 feet tall. Or no, I mean that's not even the right analogy. Like let's say your friend, if I'm 6 foot, my friend is 2 feet tall as an adult man. That's more like we're talking about, from 4 feet to 10 feet. Like, that's insane. Like, can you imagine, again, if that was humans? If, like, you would be putting the parents in jail if they were so negligent to their son that he was only 2 feet tall at 37 years old, okay? Like, it's just mind-blowing. But for these things, most people are not aware of that, and they just don't care. Again, there's a lack of empathy towards it. But, I mean, you're stunting their growth so heavily that if it was analogous in humans, it would be it'd blow your mind. You know, that would absolutely be abusive.
Or dogs or cats.
Or dogs or cats,
you know?
yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of the reptiles we get in with such horrific, metabolic bone disease, like the squishy turtle or the lizards that their bones, instead of being able to do a 90-degree angle and like bend at the elbow, it's literally just a curve and it's fused like that. I feel like if that was, like a dog, everybody would lose their mind, but it's just so accepted with reptiles, even though it's so preventable.
Well, that is just that lack of empathy towards reptiles, especially towards crocodilians, since they're monsters that eat people, right? So that stunted growth thing, I think, is one of the ones that makes me the most mad. It's just so sad when you see their potential of what they should be compared to what they end up being when they're kept as a pet. I got to remind myself to yell so you guys can hear me too. Sorry.
Do you think that Stevie will,
I don't know. I don't know. So like our alligators that we have here in captivity, we just recently got one, Stevie, that is a former pet. And I really don't know. I'm hoping that with proper sunlight, diet, everything like that, the Stevie is going to grow and get big.
And how old is Stevie? 4 or 5 years old?
5 years, I think.
5 years and like not even 4 feet.
Yep. But here's the thing. Stevie actually looks pretty good for a pet alligator that came out of a fish tank. So not only the stunted growth, but other symptoms that occur from metabolic bone disease. You get very unusually thick jaws, which Stevie has the beginnings of. You can see in Stevie how her jaws are a lot thicker than they should be for an alligator of that size. It's not too bad, but it does get bad. Okay, and so those thick jaws, what, is she coming back?
No, she's trying so hard to get to Dino for the ribs.
Give me them ribs, boy. But Big Mac, come here, buddy.
She's over there trying so hard.
Try to get him back over here too, so keep the video interesting. Big Mac, come here. Big Mac. There you go. Oh, it's a good boy. Let me try to grab another little treat here. So yeah, the thick jaws is a problem. Now that jaw thickness will also lead to, I don't know if you want to call it lockjaw, Big Mac. Whoop.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, so that is his disorientation from the car accident, guys. That's that right there, where he does that sometimes. Big Mac, you see the head tilt now? So remember, we have Big Mac because he was hit by a car. Well, a Mack truck, Big Mac. That's why his name is Big Mac. He's not named after a hamburger. All right, he's named Big Mac for getting hit by a Mack truck. So he definitely has some brain trauma, and he has a hard time. Big Mac. There you go. Good boy. But anyway, so those thickening jaws, I think, is what also leads them to not be able to properly open their mouth. So what we see a lot in captive alligators that would normally go all the way like this, their mouths only open up this much. And if you guys have been following me for a while, you might remember an alligator named Saw. Saw is a gator that came from Missouri. Yes, it was. Yeah, it was Missouri. And so Saw could only open up her jaw about this much. And I had to hand feed that alligator with tongs for years. I mean, it's the only way to keep that alligator alive is I had to hand feed her with tongs and shove it inside that little crack of her mouth because she could not open up her mouth to be able to eat on her own, couldn't feed herself. So that is definitely one that we see very, very often. And captive alligators are those jaws that can barely even open. So it does come to a point where they can't even bite you really. I mean, with Saw, like the only way you're getting bit by that thing is if you accidentally got your finger in her mouth, you know? But otherwise that gator can't like even reach out to bite you. And which also leads to a lot of captive alligators, pets, where people are, look, it's a pet. It loves me. It won't even bite me. 'Cause it can't. It literally physically cannot open up its jaws wide enough to even bite you. And then those guys are on TV like holding it like, oh, look, it won't even bite me. It loves me. Like, it is so abused and deformed that it literally can't bite you. It's not like, I mean, just the irony of like, you have abused this animal so heavily that its malnourishment and malformation now props up this idiocy of why it should be a pet because it's not trying to bite because it can't. Like, oh my God, the irony. Like, it's just, it makes me lose my mind, you know? And people use that as a justification to further keep them as pets. And it just makes me crazy. So yes, barely being able to open up the jaws Hi, buddy. He's getting better about it. He's starting to learn. I mean, he was coming to try to get me, okay? But once I'm looking at him and he knows I'm looking at him, he's getting better about not trying to swing at me. So then another big one are the teeth going out instead of down. Okay, so you see how all of his teeth are facing down so he can bite his prey, right? You'll see in these really bad MBD pet gators, their teeth go out, fully out. That's why Saw's name was Saw, because her face looked like a saw blade, because all of her teeth stuck out like this, and then her snout was so shortened and thickened, like we were talking about, like her head was round instead of elongated like an alligator should be, and the teeth going out instead of down. So when she did try to bite something, her teeth wouldn't even touch it. Like imagine trying to eat your food and you go to bite your food and your teeth stick out instead of down and your gums are smacking your food, but your teeth never touch it inside of your mouth. Imagine that as a human being. Imagine having a kid and you're like, you know, that you get child services called on you. You have abused your child so much and malnourished them so heavily that when they go to eat their food, their teeth don't even touch their food as they eat it. It's just gum smacking. That is insanity, and that is normal among these pet alligators. We see it all the time. Does she give up finally? But, you know, I just try to make the analogy to having a human kid. You know, like if you had your child and it's like, oh my God, my kid is 2 feet tall. Their mouth opens up this much. They can only eat through a straw, but that's okay because their teeth can't chew food anyway, so the straw is good for them. Like that's the mindset of these people trying to keep these animals as pets.
And the thing is, it is 100% preventable.
Yes, yeah. So what causes MBD? Again, it's a blanket term. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but generally speaking, what causes it? Lack of proper lighting, lack of UVB, UVA, lack of proper calcium in the diet. Well, I mean, just it's diet and lighting heavily for sure. I also think a decent amount of it may also arise from too much food. And that's my personal opinion. I don't have anything to back that, but just working in this field for 20 years, I have seen alligators that are kept in captivity in the best conditions possible, outdoors in Florida, full Florida sun, being fed a wide variety of different foods, still develop MBD. Now, it's not nearly as bad though. So like-
It's a little bit.
It is a little bit. So it's not anywhere near as bad. So, I mean, that does make us believe, obviously, it's coming from that lighting, that diet, but I also think it's the quantity of food being fed. So on that note too, will our baby gators end up developing MBD? Probably, yes. I'm almost sure they will because we don't fully understand it. We don't know what to do to prevent it. So I am personally trying to feed them less than like what you might think you should. That's the other thing too. Crocodilians don't eat nearly as much food as somebody would think they would because they're cold-blooded animals that don't produce their own body heat, so they eat a fraction of the amount of food that a mammal would. I'm just gonna see what he does. I'm just gonna keep on moving away.
But also, what are we feeding the babies too?
Yes, so we are trying to focus on feeding our babies a lot more of, which way are we gonna go here?
His mouth is open.
Yeah, I just wanna see what he's gonna do. So we're trying to focus on feeding our babies a lot more of what they would naturally be eating in the wild, which is not red meat for one, you know, so that's usually what they are fed in captivity. We do try to shy away from red meat a lot. It's okay as a treat every once in a while, but it definitely should not be part of the normal diet.
They don't even like it.
They don't even really like it, that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to give them a lot more like fish. You know, we want to try to incorporate more insects.
What did Tadpole have today?
Today, Tadpole had some squid.
Yeah, little
which,
squid.
I'm not sure if that's natural. I mean, it's not like they're catching squid in the wild.
Probably not, but it's like a little, you know, they would eat like mollusks and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is closer to that, yeah. So in the wild, at that size, they would be eating a lot of insects, small fish,
They would
frogs.
not be eating chicken at a foot.
No.
You know, they
Yeah,
would never
exactly.
be able to.
Yeah. So trying to focus more on like invertebrates and smaller things that they would naturally be eating in the wild, right? But also, I'm going to try to feed them less, not in an abusive way, but that's what people think. People think like people, you know, like, oh my God, I eat every day, and that thing's way bigger than I am, so it must eat way more than I do every day. And obviously, that's just not the case. You know, they're not eating anything remotely close to what we do. So again, we're trying to feed them less food and better food and full access to Florida sun. And I mean, we're going to try our best to, you know, limit the amount of metabolic bone disease that does manifest in these animals. But The gator that was in Utah that I worked with was one of the best looking long-term captive gators, not in Florida, that really didn't have MBD. And I think part of that is because it was cold there and they barely fed it in the winter. And in fact, one of the cooler things I've seen, that gator actually had growth rings on the osteoderms. So remember, the osteoderms are solid bone back here. And so it actually had growth rings on the osteoderms from when it would have a growth spurt in the summer when they were feeding it and then not feeding it in the winter. So on that alligator, you could actually tell its age by looking at the osteoderms, which is really cool. But normally where alligators occur naturally, they're not having that pronounced of growth spurts like that. So you can't see those growth rings as far as I know. I've never seen on any wild alligator in Florida, but I wonder if there's any in South Carolina where they're at the extreme northern end of their range and climate. Be kind of cool. But either way, so that was a really good one, and I think that was because, again, not being overfed, you know, so I bet that has a big influence on it. But when you see a long-term captive alligator versus a wild alligator from the wild in Florida, like they literally look like different species, you know, and that's why when Gabby and I see a photo, we can tell immediately whether or not that was a captive alligator or a wild alligator, regardless of its environment in the photo. You know, I can look at it and be like, oh, that's a released pet. I can tell immediately whether or not an alligator, even if it's in the wild, I'd be like, that's a released pet.
Do you remember when we caught one?
Yep.
Me and you. So Chris and I, this is when we were alligator trapping agents. We caught an alligator, a little baby alligator, like 3 feet, just in the middle of a community with no water. And we caught that gator and we're like, this looks like a pet alligator because it had a thick jaws and like a fat head, you know?
Yep. That was.
But obviously,
absolutely.
you cannot prove it, and you know, under 4 feet, you have to release. So,
Oh, without a doubt, that was somebody's pet
100%.
alligator that.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it had a fat head.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, again, we could easily tell.
But try calling FWC and explaining it to them. Oh,
Yeah.
these are my credentials. This is why I think it's captive, and then trying to show them pictures. They'd be like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah,
They're not gonna care. But yeah, so let's see. Those are a lot of the big ones. And again, I just really want to emphasize, like, imagine a person. Imagine like twin brothers, and one is fed a normal human diet and is doing great, and he grows up to be 6 foot tall and look normal. And then imagine his twin brother, who is kept like a baby alligator, you know, just to make this analogy, who is 2 feet tall, whose teeth stick out like this, whose head is like all deformed and shrunken in, and like has to only can eat through a straw. I mean, that's literally what is happening to these animals when people do try to keep them as pets. Now, on that note though, I know people are going to say, yeah, but what about other crocodilian species? Because some of them are more prone to MBD than others. And this is true. We see really bad MBD in a lot of alligators. But then if you look at like dwarf caiman, that's what everybody's always like, oh, but dwarf caiman make good pets. Look at them. Now they do exhibit MBD, okay? It's not that they don't, but they don't exhibit it as heavily as alligators do.
I want to know at what age these caiman are dying. Because there have been some very, very famous caiman that people are sleeping in with sleeping with them in bed and keeping them as, you know, like pets and treating them like babies. And they have died, I think, relatively young.
Yep.
So
yeah,
that tells you a lot.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what those specific instances were about or what happened or anything like that. But yes, there have been some notable ones that are being kept really well too, that do die young. And I mean, that I don't know exactly the life expectancy on a dwarf caiman, but I'm going to say it's at least over 50.
I was going to say 30 to 40.
I would assume it's probably up in the 80s, honestly.
I feel like all crocodilians are.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any crocodilian that doesn't get up to 80, you know, so, or even more. So let's just say 50 to lowball it, you know, and having them die in captivity like that, it's like, no, there's something definitely wrong there, you know? So again,
Well, we were talking about like how crocs don't really exhibit it as much.
okay, yeah.
And then we could talk about TikTok.
Yeah, so we do have TikTok, the Morlitz crocodile, who absolutely exhibits metabolic bone disease, so it does come up in crocodiles. It doesn't seem to be as evident in crocodiles as it is in alligators, though. You know, with the gators, it's really obvious. With the crocs, what you also see more of is like like the jaws being like kind of like that more, you know, like off center. Tell me if he's coming through, by the way.
Yeah, he's not. You're good.
Trying to talk to the camera. So you'll see them a lot like that more. Oh, and by the way, I know people, why do you have glove on one hand? Oh, because this hand got ripped off. It's animatronic. Didn't you see Star Wars? No, I always do that when I'm doing the water stuff so that I do have a hand that is normal and sensitive, especially when I'm doing the camera gear. You see I got the underwater camera right back there in the grass. And then I'm already cold. So I keep one glove on just to keep my hands feeling better. But yeah, so just FYI, because everybody's always like, oh my God, is it? Yeah, it's animatronic. But yeah, I usually do that. Anyways, so the crocs, you'll see them with their jaws offset. You know, we see that pretty often in captive raised crocs. Also their teeth, it's the same thing with the teeth. Like on TikTok, you can see her, well, all those things. The jaw is more thick than it should be. The jaws are shorter than they should be, and the teeth are flaring out, okay, instead of going up and down like they should be, you know? So all those things come together just like they do in alligators. So that's why I'm arguing keeping these animals as pets in fish tanks is abuse. I think it is, call it what it is. It is animal abuse. There's no argument. There's no argument somebody can make to me that it's not animal abuse. If you did that to humans, you would be child services all up on you, you know? So like it is animal abuse to keep them in those conditions. Now, you gonna say something?
I also wanted to say, like, I don't think people realize how like prevalent it is keeping alligators as pets, because I didn't until we honestly opened up this place. And now we have other facilities reaching out to us too. Like we have like multiple weekly facilities in Michigan. Like, we're full. Can you take some? We're talking to a facility in California that's like overrun with these pet alligators, and it's crazy. And again, our mission is nuisance alligators. So that pet alligator we took was surrendered with a crocodile, so we took both of them, you know, to help them out. But pet alligators is not really our mission, so we can't really help out with that. You know, we're focusing on the nuisance gators, but there's just not enough facilities to take them.
Yep. Yeah, so it is a problem.
It's a huge problem.
Well, yeah, so the animal's health, big issue. Public safety, I would say, well, it's not really probable, but for most people, I'd say that's a big issue they'd be worried about. Other big one, where do they go if they ever make it to get big? Where do they go? So that is another part of this issue that I don't think is talked about enough. It's just that, like, what are you gonna do? And it's hitting 5 feet, you know, which most of them max out about that, honestly. Again, very sad. That is part of the abuse, is that they never get that big. You don't see any 12-footers raised from a baby in captivity. It's just non-existent. But they will get, you know, like maybe 5 or 6 feet, depending on how well the person cares for them. He's coming now. You know, and that, again, that comes down to how well they're cared for. If you do a good job, they can, you know, get 5, 6, I think even up to 8 feet has been seen, you know?
Well, and then what about all the releases that we're getting in all these cold states? Everyone's releasing their alligators.
Yeah. So, so what are you going to do with it when it gets big? You know, so I think that is part of this conversation, because most people don't have the capacity to keep a 10-foot alligator. Not that they ever get that big. So let's just say 6-foot alligator. Most people do not have the capacity to keep that animal, especially in situations or in an enclosure that wouldn't be deemed abusive. You know, I mean, look at what we're providing for these alligators here. They literally have more land than what I grew up in my childhood home.
Oh, this is way bigger than my first apartment. I think this is even bigger than our house, honestly.
Yeah.
I think, like...
Yeah, I mean, these guys, they've got it made out here, and they use this area. Like, they walk all around here, you know? So, like, they do need space. These are large animals that need a large amount of space. And if you have a regular house with a regular yard, you cannot possibly provide them with what they should have. That's it, you know? It's just like any other people trying to keep a tiger, you know, or a gorilla or a chimp, or, you know, what, any of these large, dangerous animals. Even the danger aside, because the people keeping them never have any common sense about the danger they're actually in. They're always idiots. But just trying to provide for that animal the adequate amount of space that it should have, basically non-existent, okay? And that we see it all the time. And, like, you know, what are you going to do with your 6-foot alligator in your regular house? Some people end up converting an entire room just for the animal, which on one hand is commendable that they're trying. On the other hand, it's not good enough. It's not anywhere near good enough. So, like, what do you say? Like, those are the people who are trying the hardest of this genre of people. And it's like, good that you're trying, it's not good enough. you know? And I think that needs to be said more often, instead of just commending them for actually trying better than the rest. It's like, you're still the winner of the losers here. Like, it's not, oh, he actually swung there. Yeah, he's trying to bite my hand underwater because I was touching his arm, trying to push him away. So it's still not good enough. And I think that's a big one there too. So how much space should they have? This pond that we have here for these two is 50 feet long, 30 feet across, 6 foot deep in the center over here. And then the surrounding area, I don't know, is this like a half acre maybe that they have?
Not that big, maybe a quarter.
Maybe, yeah, something like that. So it's a decent amount of space for them here.
And it's still, we would still like to, you know.
Oh, I would have made it bigger if I could have afforded it.
If we were millionaires, yeah. If we only had like one, let's say we had like one pet alligator, it would have 3 acres and an acre pool. But because we have 200 plus animals and we're trying to save them,
yeah,
we're trying to take in as many animals as possible while still trying to provide the best care. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't think people think like long term. He looks like he wants to bellow. Look at that position. How cool would that be?
That'd be so cool. With all the thunder.
I don't think he will because we're here, but like he's in that position.
Yeah, I don't think he will, but all the thunder might make him think about it.
Dino might.
Oh, that'd be cool. That low thunder right now.
So, I mean, what is the solution, you know?
Oh, well, the real solution is a federal blanket making it illegal to own these animals without some sort of permit.
People get very upset at that. People get very upset.
Yeah, people can kick rocks. That's people don't like to hear the truth. Truth is, you shouldn't have these things in your house unless you are qualified, and you know you have to be So in Florida, our wildlife laws are reactive, and it's because we're in Florida. You know, Florida man, all this craziness, that Florida has had to respond to so many out of control, crazy situations that we actually have a decent set of laws across a lot of different species. Some of them even overboard, you know, like their reaction to pythons, I think is insane. Like, yeah, it's just crazy. Overboard, you know, but that it's retaliatory to, it's kind of like the problem became so big, they have to make a response that's so big that it completely is blown out of proportion, you know? But anyway, so again, for these guys, now the requirements for keeping them, I think, are subpar. You know, like you have to have, for an alligator, 2.5 acres of land. That doesn't mean the gator's on 2.5. You could still keep them in some horrible, crappy conditions.
As long as they can fully submerge and fully bask.
So there needs to be revision on that. But yeah, so like, if I was suddenly in charge of all captive animal husbandry in the United States, I would say I would probably keep the 1,000 hours thing. I feel like
that's insane. Maybe 500. Like,
I don't think it's
1,000 hours is just a BS number.
Well, I thought it is, but it also means that you have to like work somewhere. Like,
you can volunteer 1,000 hours with a baby and go get a 10-footer.
Okay, that's a good point. So that's a good point. You should have to demonstrate your hours of experience with an adult animal, so that you are able to control an adult animal. So that's definitely... You don't
think there should be like how there's like a driving test and you have to go somewhere and demonstrate your knowledge? You don't think you should have to demonstrate that you know how to handle a venomous snake or an alligator or a crocodile? Yeah. So people aren't just like signing off on other people's hours.
Well, I can see why the state doesn't want to do that, because what happens when you fail the test and you die?
Well, I think it would deter people from.
But no, I 100% agree. Like, if you want to own this animal, you should be physically able to handle that animal, you know, whether it's with tools or you bare hands. Like, what happens when your baby alligator gets to 10 feet and it escapes? What are you going to do to get it back and keep it from hurting the neighbors around you? You should have that ability, and they should test that. Absolutely. Now, they don't do that, but I'm like, yeah, they should. Like, because I also see people who have their permits in Florida who have no physical ability to be able to handle these animals. And it's like, now you don't, obviously they get so big that you can't physically do it just barehanded when you're talking about like a 15-foot animal, but you should have the tools and the knowledge and ability to capture it if things did go wrong. Obviously, you should be able to be responsible for that animal no matter what happens. And you should be tested on those abilities. Now, obviously that test is very dangerous. But that speaks to why you shouldn't have them.
You don't think it would deter people if they're like, okay, here's your venomous test. Show me how
Go
you
catch this
handle
mamba.
it. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, well, I mean, so
you have 1,000 hours, right?
the venomous one is
a
a big one because for venomous snakes in Florida, you need 1,000 hours per family, which is
insane.
Which is interesting, but that means that I could do 1,000 hours with a pygmy rattlesnake, and I am now qualified to go get a bushmaster because they're in the same family. Or 1,000 hours with a coral snake, one of the easiest, like, non-aggressive snakes there is, highly venomous, but very chill, doesn't really strike. It's an elapid, so I can do my elapid hours with a coral and go buy a black mamba. I'm qualified. That's insane, you know? So again, like, you should be able to demonstrate your physical ability to control that animal in an emergency situation to be qualified to have the animal to begin with, you know, whether that's...
Which is never gonna happen.
Which is never gonna happen, you know, but like, let's say if you wanted to have tigers, you know, like, what are you gonna do when it gets out? I guess you'd have to have like your dart gun, your tranquilizer, your whole protocol and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah. Well, even when people... Well, you do have to write that stuff out.
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say,
you don't have to demonstrate it.
No, we have we have disaster plans, like God forbid a hurricane or something. But like, do they require plans if an animal gets out?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, that's part of it. You know, like, how do you capture your animal again? But there's no demonstration of the skills.
Right.
And as we both know many people who have permits who have no business having those permits. They have no ability to control that animal if something went wrong.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I feel like that's a big one there. But just in general, I mean, think about like your guy in Wisconsin who has no experience, literally zero experience working with reptiles.
In his defense, that crocodile was rescued.
Well, I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, what a state with no regulation. You know, you got your guy in Michigan or, you know, whatever state you want to pick where they don't have a law about it. You can just go get your alligator or crocodile, your Nile crocodile, and then...
That's crazy, the amount of Niles and Morlets that are in captivity.
Yeah. So, okay, because there's no regulation on that too, that also means that there is no... wow, look at him. Hi, how you doing? Thank you. Because there is no regulation on that, there is no responsibility for the animal as it gets big, and so that leads people to dump them. Okay, so the croc that we got it because the person who had it before the person that gave it to us was going to dump it.
Or eat it.
Or eat it, he said.
Dump it
Either
or eat
let it go in a lake in Wisconsin or eat it. Now, letting it go in a lake in Wisconsin is 100% a death sentence for the animal. It's dead. It's not going to survive the winter, you know? And that's what a lot of people end up doing is they just dump them. Now, some people will drive down because they care about their animal and they're like, oh, I want to survive. They're going to drive down to Florida and dump it here so it can't survive.
Which is so illegal.
Which is, oh my God. You know, especially with a non-native crocodilian, driving it down and just letting it go so it survives in Florida as a non-native crocodilian, becomes an invasive species. All kinds of problems, okay? So again, really, really bad. Bad for the animals, bad for the environment, potentially bad for people because some of those are very, very dangerous species, you know? So all the way around, man, it's just not good. It's not responsible. And, oh, another point, where do they come from? A lot of them end up getting poached. What is providing these animals to this, it is I want to say it's a small market, but it's more prevalent than you would think, okay?
You don't think it's a lot of people breeding in Florida and then selling the babies out of state too?
Some of them. I know, you and I know of someone who had a permit to go collect wild baby alligators and then sell them out of state as pets.
Wasn't he doing that illegally?
I don't know. No, he's legal.
I think there was an issue.
Maybe.
I don't know. These people are all crazy.
It's nuts. But yeah, so there absolutely is an element. I mean, I know in this case, there's 100% an element of taking wild baby alligators and then selling them all across the U.S. as pet animals that came out of the wild. So you're removing baby wild alligators. And then I'm sure baby wild crocs from other countries are brought in, imported in.
Well, people justify it because, statistically speaking, baby alligators, most of them are not going to make it anyway.
Which is true.
But I feel like I would probably rather die as a baby naturally than like spend 50 years in a fish tank.
Well, there's that, and it's also, if they die in the wild, they are part of the food chain.
Right.
That's nature.
No.
Oh, hello. I know. I know. I keep on hanging out in here, and you're not getting any more food.
People get really weird about animals in captivity, and we always say, like, animals in captivity in any aspect is not ideal, but there's a way to do it, and there are responsible keepers out there. Unfortunately, I think most of them are very irresponsible, but there definitely are some people that deeply care about their animals and definitely try. And I think there's a big difference between like captivity, like an enclosure like this, and captivity versus like a fish tank. Or like a spare bedroom.
Well, why do we have this alligator? We are a sanctuary that has our permits, and we have him because he got hit by a car, and he's a nuisance alligator in the road. All of our alligators, except for the one we just got as a former pet, which was, I mean, what was he going to do with that alligator if we didn't take it?
Yeah.
You know? So we have our alligators for a reason. We are not going out and just poaching them for no good reason, you know, like, which is what's happening to support that pet trade, unfortunately. You know, a lot of those animals, they originate from being poached, you know, even as the babies, just collected out of the wild and then sold as babies right out of the wild, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it should be like similar to like the migratory bird permit, where you either have to have them on display for a certain number of hours a year or like a certain number of programs a year. I haven't been in New York for 8 years, but when I was in New York, the permits for venomous snakes were very, very strict. You could get it, but it was really hard. And you would have to do like a certain amount of public something.
Yeah.
Because you have to justify having that permit.
Which I agree with. I think you should have to justify having these animals, you know, absolutely. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm for a total ban on them, though. You know, like, I think that if you are someone who is very passionate about these animals and you can justify why you have them and contribute towards education, conservation, improve it, and you have the space and you're going to do the proper enclosure, you know, all this kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot of requirements behind this. But again, I'm not like, oh, hello.
But again, far and few in between.
Yes. But, well, I don't like it. People will comment and say, oh, rules for thee, but not for me.
Well, obviously those people are idiots, and then they don't have the animal's best interest in mind then.
Well,
we're not saying this because we want to be cool and we want to be the only people with alligators.
Yeah. Well, those people who are saying that are often the people who have one.
In a fish tank.
In a fish tank.
Yeah.
So that's the people I wanted. That's who I'm talking to, though, in a lot of this, are those people to prevent them from doing this or realize that what you're doing is not in the animal's best interest, you know? So that's why I want to address exactly what those people are saying, you know? So I'm not against you having the animal as long as you have a justification for having it. I mean, you know, again, we have a 40-acre animal sanctuary. We do education. Now, as far as conservation goes, that's a tricky one. Now, you could argue education is conservation, and it is, and I agree with that. But a lot of people will have animals on the false pretense that it is part of a captive breeding program for conservation reasons without them ever going back in the wild. So be aware, there's a lot of that out there, guys. There's a ton of people who have an animal for conservation and for captive breeding, and they're like, oh, well, we're introduced to babies in the wild.
What is it for, like, assurance colonies or whatever they say?
You know, now there are real ones of that does exist, but they're very few and far between. So, like,
well, I also feel like some keepers could actually work with zoos and do like conservation work, but zoos are too like, what is the word that I'm thinking of? They have their like noses up in the air, like they're very stuck up, and they won't work with other people that aren't part of like AZA or ZAA and all this other crazy things, and that's just like ego, I think.
Yeah.
So even if people want to and you know, they can't.
People say it about us. Are Bella and Big Mac going to breed? Yes. They're going to mate. They're going to have babies. No, they're going to lay eggs, but they're not going to have babies because we're going to collect the eggs, prevent incubation. We're trying to provide a home for these guys, not put more into captivity. So we're not going to let them produce actual offspring.
Because you cannot release them.
So that people ask, well, why don't you do that and just let the babies go back out in the wild? Well, we're not allowed to. So that's the thing too. It's not only people who are just lying about it or don't have good intentions. It's that even those with good intentions are blocked by the law. We're not allowed to release their offspring back out in the wild. It's just, that is what it is. If we wanted to breed our Niles and then release the babies back in the wild in their native range in Africa, that is impossible for us to be able to do as far as permits and figuring all that stuff out. It is not possible.
Even
you know?
like multi-million-dollar zoos, it's pretty hard, and there's only a few that are able to do things.
And that's
like
just
that.
bureaucracy.
Yeah.
That's just laws, red tape, bureaucracy, all that kind of stuff gets in the way that prevents you from being able to release them back out in the wild anyways.
Yeah, but like I see, it makes me so mad. So many people, especially in Florida, with lemurs, because lemurs are endangered. And they're like, oh, we let the lemurs breed because assurance colonies and conservation. Oh, you're putting them back in Madagascar? Like, what do you?
No,
No,
nobody is.
They're gonna spend their lives in an 8x8 enclosure. Like, that's, you know. So I don't like people that are not honest about it, or that are so out of touch with reality that they believe their own BS.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is so. Yeah.
Yeah, so unfortunately, even if you want to, there's not an availability to put them back in the wild for almost everything. You know, it's just not, it doesn't exist as a legal pathway, even if you want to do it. Now, most people are just saying that just to say it. They have no actual intention of doing so, but even if you want to try to do it, it's just simply not possible.
Yeah.
Now, also with a lot of these animals, hi, can I help you? Oh, he's so cute though. I know, I know. Look, I'll circle around and get you something. But yeah, with a lot of these animals, there is, like for alligators, there is no need to put alligators back out into the wild in Florida. In fact, they want to cull the population of them. That's the case for a lot of different species. Big Mac, he saw you. Big Mac, oh, he's looking at you.
I don't have anything, baby.
Come here, buddy. Big Mac. Come here. Big Mac. Oh, come here. Big Mac. Hi, bud. There you go. Okay, so if you are one of these people who would have been interested, she's coming now.
Yeah.
If you are one of these people who would have been interested in having a pet alligator and I just rain on your parade and you're like, yeah, but like, I really like these animals and I want to do what you do. How do I do what you do? You got to work at a facility. You have to volunteer. You can do what I did, which is work at facilities, volunteer. Most places, to be able to work with these animals and get this far, you have to volunteer for years at a place before they're gonna let you actually work with them and get paid to do it, you know? So like, you gotta put the time in. It's gonna take a lot of work to be able to get there, you know? So volunteering, working at places. Oh, don't try to bite my feet.
She is.
Yep, she is. That bad girl. But yeah, so if you do want to work with these animals and you're trying to figure out how to do it, please do not buy a baby one and keep it inside of a fish tank. Again, that is abusing the animal. Not good for it, not good for you. Try to pursue working at a licensed facility that is doing a good job and doing good work. Try to volunteer there or actually get a paid position there.
It will also make you way more credible. For example, if we were having job interviews for a crocodilian specialist, right? If you come to me and you're like, oh, I've kept alligators as pets before,
Nope.
I'm going to be like, oh, okay. Like, what does that mean? But if you're like, oh, I volunteer here working with the alligators and this, oh, okay. So you know what you're doing. You're not just winging it and keeping them in a fish tank.
Yeah. I mean, we have had people who reach out to us. They're like, I want to come work for you. I've worked with alligators for years with the ones I keep in my basement.
And they
No.
send pictures and they're always super messed up.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's the opposite of what we want. Now, for a lot of people though, their intentions were good. You know, like a lot of people just, they don't know any better. It's a lot of ignorance. A lot of people are like, oh my God, these things are so cool. I'm fascinated by them. I want to be around them. So, oh wow, there's one at my local pet store in my state, doesn't require any permit whatsoever. So then they go and they get one. You know, and like it's done, I don't want to say done innocently, but it's not done in a malicious way, or you know, a lot of it is ignorance and
Nobody
just not
wants their animal to be MBD and super messed up. Like, I don't think people enjoy torturing their animals, but it's just, you got to take a step back sometimes. No matter how much you love that animal, what I like to say is hoarders love their animals too. hoarders that have so many dead cats and dogs just stuffed in their house, they love their animals. You know, but does that mean the animals are being taken care of properly?
I think at some point it's ego. It's
Yeah.
the inability to admit that you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and it becomes an ego issue.
I mean, we have people that reach out and like they love their animals, and it's not just alligators, it's coatis, it's lizards, and they're like, I love my animal and I've provided the best home I was able to, but I realized this animal really needs more space and I would like it to go to you. And like, we have a lot of respect for people like that love their animal and that want better for their animal because they don't think they can provide that, rather than just doubling down like, oh, so I can't do it but you can. Like, that's it's not what we're saying. If you can provide this, go for it, but good luck in Pennsylvania when it's freezing cold, right, Miss Girl? Yes, she's a naughty girl.
Yeah, I think that's about ego.
Yeah.
You know, it's about not admitting when you're wrong or realizing it, and like taking a step back and be like, you know, maybe I'm not doing this the right way. Maybe there's a better way to be doing this.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, it's just, again, these things aren't pets all the way around. It's a bad situation, and it's who gets the worst deal of the whole thing are the animals.
The animals suffer.
The animals suffer the most in this whole scenario. So please, guys, don't contribute to this. Do not try to get these things as pets. Do not support the pet trade of crocodilians. It is not good for them. It's never good for them. And what like bothers me is like, I am a contributor to this problem because I make content with animals like this that go viral, and nobody reads my captions, even though I am yelling this message into the void until I'm blue in the face. You get some idiot that saw my video, wow, that's so cool, I want to do that, never looks at my stuff, never reads my captions.
I think it's a beautiful thing that you inspire people, but I wish that you would inspire people to have better habitats and inspire people to rescue animals, or inspire people to start like a sanctuary, not inspire people to buy pets and keep them in subpar conditions, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm doing everything I can to not contribute to that. Like,
yeah,
what else can I do?
There's nothing you can do. It's,
you know?
Anyone that follows you, that loves you, knows where your stance on captive alligators.
Yeah, and for me too, it is the battle of, trying to show these animals in a positive light that will negate fear and hatred towards them. So how do we do that? Oh, well, we try to make them look a bit more cute, you know, and like, if I want to take her and I'm like this, you know, I'm like, oh, look, he's holding her like a baby. How cute is that? If I do this in a video, I know that video is going to get more views. And I know that video is going to make people see these animals in a more positive light, because you're like, oh, wow, look at that. He's petting her and she's not killing him for it. Sorry, I got distracted because I was like, she's going to go down and bite my leg. Okay. But trying to get people to care about these animals and not see them as monsters then becomes fodder towards, wow, it's cute and cuddly like a pet. I'm going to buy one as a pet. And I'm like, no. Like, how do I walk that line of like getting people to not see them as monsters they want to shoot and kill, but not see them as cute, cuddly pets they want to go buy one?
I think you're doing a good job.
I try to, but it is hard. And people don't watch every video or read every caption. And so even if I say it 100 times, if I didn't say it 101 times and people see that one, that's, they're just not going to get it. You know, it's very frustrating. It's hard.
Yeah.
But I don't know, anything else you want to add to this?
No, just that I wish people would realize like what a big problem this is. Like, people think it's funny when I say there's a pig crisis right now. There is a pig crisis. Like, there are not enough facilities to take people's pet pigs. I think we're in an alligator crisis. I don't think there are enough facilities to take people's stunted alligators. Like,
it is true.
And provide them good homes. That's the thing too. Like, because we could stick 100 alligators in here right now, but is that, not
going to be happy animals,
right?
Well, let us know in the comments what you guys think. What are your opinions on this whole thing? Questions, all that kind of stuff. And I hope you all enjoyed watching the video. Thank you.